Famous detective Hercule Poirot is back in business, and this time he's got a partner in crime in this latest reimagining of Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile from Metroid's studio. Welcome to the latest episode of First Impressions, where I try out brand new video games so you can see whether you think you'll like them before you ever have to spend a penny on them. And today we're making our way back in time, although not as far as you'd think, just to the 1970s to try our hand at becoming a master detective in the guise of Hercule Poirot, and this time he has someone helping him out in your secondary protagonist, Jane Royce. There have been so many iterations of Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile, video games, books, TV series, films, you name it, they've made something out of it. So you do have to ask the question, is there anything more that can be added to this story? Well, Metroid have certainly tried to put their own twist on it, first of all by bringing this game into the 1970s, and I have to say the music in the opening sequences did feel really juxtaposed to what I had in my head from the source material, but eventually you do get your head around that and you do get used to it. Once you get your head around the time shift, you'll realize that the first hour of this game is essentially an elongated tutorial. You will get introduced to some of the core characters that will follow you throughout the game, but this is really about getting used to the mechanics, and I have to warn you, you need to prepare yourself for a slower pace of play. You'll be introduced to the main pieces of UI that you'll use throughout the game, mainly the mind map and the character profiles, and you'll be taught how you can link evidence, people, and disparate pieces of information to eventually solve a crime. Part of me felt like this was going to be a bit of a point and click adventure, but you are moving around in a three-dimensional environment, and they've done a really good job of making confined spaces feel quite open. As you move through the environment, you'll be presented with different clues, people, and puzzles to solve, some of which are directly related to the case that you're working, others are just fun little bonus side missions like collecting gold mustaches.
What a magnificent moustache.
The more you explore the environment, the more clues you'll find, and the more people you speak to, the more information you'll be presented with, some of which feels very disparate, but all of that gets added to your mind map, and it's your job to link those things together and try and create a connection that will ultimately result in you solving the mystery. At the end of the first chapter, you'll be presented with your first timeline, where you have to try and recreate the time scene and place different characters in different places at different times, depending on the information that you've heard. So it's important that you listen very carefully, that you observe all the clues that you can, and you try and retain as much information as you possibly can. If you're anything like me, your memory is terrible. So one of the great things that this game has is a conversation log that you've had with every single character that you can review at any time based on where you had the conversation and who you had the conversation with. One of my big tips would be to fill out your character cards as you're going through. Don't wait till later on because you forget all of the information. So as you meet somebody, bring up your character list and add the information that you know about them at the time, because it might become important later on. Graphically, this game isn't doing anything revolutionary, and it doesn't have to. This feels like a game that sits really well on a mobile console like a Switch, and a game doesn't have to have AAA graphics to have a great story and great mechanics. And if you love detective games that have a slower pace and allow you to wander around and discover things in your own time, this one is definitely going to be for you. The voice acting by and large is great, although there are times when it feels a little bit stilted, and the pacing between conversations is a little bit slower than you might expect it to be, but overall that's such a minor issue that you can very quickly get over it. It does take a little bit of a while to get into the action. As I said, the first hour is mainly tutorial, so until chapter 2 you're not even in Egypt where Death on the Nile takes place. If you're worried about already knowing the story of Death on the Nile, don't, because Metroid have said they go beyond the original source text, and as I said before, they've already brought this into a more modern time frame, as well as adding a co-protagonist in Jane Royce. There are multiple mysteries and multiple stories to be solved here, and the co-protagonists will be working together to ensure both those mysteries get solved. At the end of each chapter, you'll be given a list of stats, things like how long you took to complete the chapter, how many mistakes you made, and how many gold mustaches you find, which became a bit of an obsessive side mission for me. As you're walking around, you might see a gold mustache on a sofa, in a plant, or sometimes behind a puzzle, and finding all of those is going to be absolute dream for you completionists. If you're not into slower paced games, this one might not be for you. There's a lot of walking around, reviewing information, talking to people, retaining that information, filling out character cards, reviewing your mind maps, linking things together, and solving smaller mysteries in order to get to the big reveal. But if you're into the traditional kind of point and click detective style games, they've absolutely got the mechanics spot on, and there's enough puzzles dotted around for you to solve to keep your mind really active. None of them so difficult that you can't get past them, and there are hints available if you're really struggling on any particular thing. A minor pet peeve with this game that exists in lots of games is that the NPCs just don't keep up with you, and I found myself a couple of times being jolted back to continue conversations that were happening because the game allowed me to run much further ahead of the NPC whilst the conversation was still ongoing. There were also some situations where a cutscene interrupted a dialogue scene because we'd reached a point sooner than the game expected. Overall, if you're sat on your couch with your Switch on a rainy day and you're looking to pass some time with something that feels comfortable, isn't too fast paced, but is based on great source material, then I really recommend you pick this one up because they've done a really great job of adding their own little twist to source material that has been done in 1,000 different ways, 1,000 different times. So add this to your wish list now, make sure you get it when it comes out because it's a lot of fun to play.